How much should video games cost? This question comes from a place not like a consumer, but instead a person who's just actually curious. It may be the understatement of the year, but video games are expensive. Not just in price, but in existence. There is a lot of money spent to make video games. We somehow found ourselves in a generation where one game can cost hundreds of $1,000,000 just to be made. How did this even happen? Just to get a single game to market, there's more money spent than I'll see in my lifetime. I have a hard time understanding what that amounts to when I can so readily buy these $1,000,000 projects on digital stores any day of the week on sale for $12.99. Hate to admit it, but sometimes through the right sales and deals, we get away with playing some pretty impressive games for not much money. Games that have so much packed inside of them. There's so many hours of real people who've worked extremely hard on crafting these beautiful worlds, constructing these interesting characters, and formulating these addictive gameplay loops. There's so much content in what we play today, it can sometimes be baffling. And now, as we sit at the crest of the horizon of a most likely overall increase in game prices, price has become more uncertain. Is there such a thing as a perfect price for games? Is that even something that can be measured by a group of analysts or enthusiasts? I guess the question, how much should video games cost, is too ambiguous. The real question is, what the heck are video games even worth? The question probably has a statistical answer somewhere based on technology, manpower, and scope of a project. Though if we went solely off of that, we would be paying prices for games that are absurdly high. But if you ask the right person, I'm sure they feel the same way about the prices for games now. This is what full price video games cost right now. For myself here in the US, it costs $70 to play a new game. Switch 2 price is not included in this. That price is nothing to sneeze at. Though, even at that high price, I've read articles that claim that we as video game consumers have been getting away with highway robbery. Now, how could that be? $70 and we're the ones making out like bandits? That can't be right. And with how often prices fluctuate, it'd be impossible to tell if that idea holds any weight at all. Video games go on sale so often and sometimes so fast that I don't even know their worth. It kind of makes it difficult for me to want to purchase a game at full price. I know video games are expensive to produce, and studios definitely need something back after a game is released, but it seems like games that don't immediately do well right out of the gate are instantly put out on sale. It's like there's always this knee-jerk reaction to a bad release, and the result is always a game getting discounted really early in its life cycle. Now, to its credit, that can pretty much be seen as a plus to us, the consumer. I'm sure no one has ever complained about a sale. However, sales on new games have been so prevalent, it changes the way I personally look at buying games. I used to pre-order games and anxiously wait for their release in hopes that I could play it immediately. I'm sure most can agree that waiting for the release of a highly anticipated game can be a very exciting and annoying experience. All the build up to play a game you have been waiting so long for almost sometimes makes you feel like you just about pay any amount just to get a chance to play that title. And in a lot of cases, I feel like game studios know this feeling exists and have started taking advantage of it. I believe that's the reason we've seen the rise of tactics like deluxe bundles, including early access to players. Now, deluxe bundles have been a thing for some time. However, this recent overly inclusion of early access seems like an extra incentive just to get players to pay more without really adding anything to the actual value of the bundle. At the end of the day, early access will eventually run out, and the game will be available to everyone at a normal price. If that's the only reason you paid extra money, then the real worth of your purchase is fleeting. This means that for the time leading up to a game's release, games can technically be worth more to us. All of a sudden, a game that originally is priced at $60 or $70 can balloon in price just so we can get to play them a couple days early. It's never been worth it. I feel like I can relate to this theme the most personally on my purchase of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. The moment I saw my first glimpse of gameplay, I was already sold. A new entry in one of my favorite anime and video game series ever was just too great to think about passing up. The question wasn't would I buy Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, but rather, when was the first time I could get my hands on it? And when the various deluxe bundles were first shown off and I saw the 3-day early access being flaunted as a deluxe benefit, I fell for it. And for the record, Sparking Zero is a wonderful game. Visually is one of the best anime games I've ever seen, and it translates the old gameplay from older Dragon Ball Z games pretty well. Though at the end of the day, I still feel like I paid too much for it. My purchase of the Ultimate Edition does include a season pass and extra characters, but even with that, the main draw of my pre-order was really the early access, which of course is now no longer a benefit. Since Sparking Zero has been released, it has seen a few sales, and in that time I can't really say I've been playing it all that much, with me having put a little under 40 hours in it. And while I might have a few grievances with the actual game itself, none of those things was the reason I ever stopped playing. The game just naturally ran its course. A game that I was so excited to play as soon as possible, I was willing to pay extra money for it. And it really got me thinking, what was Sparking Zero worth to me? What are any of the games I buy on release really worth to me? I enjoyed them for sure, but in a couple of months, when I've done everything I wanted, played through the story maybe more than once, seen all the side quests and extra modes, hunted for all the achievements I feel like I could handle, it's hard not to question the value when I get on the digital store and the game I paid full price for is staring at me for 40% off. For this reason, game prices can sometimes seem a bit arbitrary. Watching these million-dollar projects shift back and forth from on sale to full price to bundled in with the cost of subscriptions is a bit odd. I'm not saying a game on sale is weird. Any product can go on sale, but with the sheer number of times I've seen $70 games drop down in price, it shifts the mindset. Full price games just don't seem like the best idea. If a new game comes out, do I buy it right then? Or do I hold off, play what's in my backlog, enjoying the evergreen amount of content I've already purchased? There's no inherently wrong answer. I'm full of the idea that a gamer will play what they want to play when they are ready. Gaming is an expensive hobby, and everyone who is lucky enough to partake in the space understands this. We play games when we are ready, and when the price makes the most sense for us. I recently bought Final Fantasy XVI on sale, and it quickly became one of my favorite things to look forward to every day. It was the perfect action game for me to get lost in during my play sessions. The worlds were big, openish areas crawling with monsters. The combat in particular might have started out a little slow, but it slowly grew into this flashy anime explosion of powers I've earned throughout the game. I was able to build Clive, one of my new favorite video game protagonists, any way I wanted to, with all his various elemental powers on offer. And I loved how it allowed me to customize his combat how I saw fit. Did I want to get in close and use various weaker skills with quicker cooldowns, or focus on skills with big cooldowns that dished out massive damage? By far my favorite thing to play around with in this game. Along with that, it came with a story that I really sunk my teeth into, and characters that I seriously cared about. Shout out to my boy Joshua. I got to experience this game, one of the few games I've ever played that actually managed to bring me to tears. A game that reminded me why video games are my favorite medium, for $30. As far as I'm concerned, this purchase was a steal. There's no other way for me to put it. I stole from them. I might as well have gone to Square Enix headquarters, walked through the front door of the CEO's office, and taken money out of his wallet. FF16 is oozing with detail and polish, and I got to enjoy it all for less than half of its full price. You can sort of start to see where this question about video game prices sprang from for me. Had I just bought FF16 on release, I would have still enjoyed it for sure, but there's no way to know if I would have felt this satisfied from my experience from purchase to credits. And I feel that this situation has taught me to not stop, but slow down on what games I choose to pre-order or buy at full price, no matter how initially excited I may be leading up to a game's release. It's a bit hard. The constant flow of new interesting titles never seems to slow down, and a nerd like me just wants to get his hands on with every single one of them. But I have realized that games aren't going anywhere. They are an unmovable object that will constantly be available to us. We will always have a chance to buy them, and while the price that you can purchase them at might change, it's up to the individual to decide if the current price is worth it to them at that time. And so it changes to not what are video games worth, but what are video games worth to you? But that's just merely a slice of the whole pie. I haven't even begun to talk about the price of DLC. And what about digital games costing the same as physical games? Should games really lose value over time like other things? Hey, why can't we sell our games back for full price? Game prices keep going up. How much should microtransactions really be? $80, Why didn't Nintendo games hold their value? Controllers cost the same as games. How much should remakes cost? What is Xbox doing with their prices? What should we expect?
Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist.
We already know what games cost. Well, I thought we knew before Switch 2 prices were shown. But what I really mean is, gamers already know what to expect. Imagine going back to the release of something like God of War Ragnarok. I don't think anyone was shocked to see this was a full price title. The gamer mind has already been trained to spot such a thing. We can pick out AAA games from a mile away. We understand what to look for, what warrants that premium price. It seems to be one of the few sentiments us game consumers share with studios, the expectation of worth. We've all become conditioned to pick out what certain games should cost before ever trying them. Simply what a game is, from either IP or gameplay, will determine what we think it should be priced at. And while that core tenet may not always be the correct way to look at games, it's become a pretty standard practice. Basically saying if you see a character like Mario in a game, it's safe to bet the game will be full price before ever seeing gameplay. The same way we look at God of War and expect it to be a full price game is the same way I look at games like Marvel Rivals and expect them to be free to play. This is of course fine in most cases with how these games are monetized. It's become a pretty normal mindset of random PvP games to just be free. I've still never really known if this is inherently right. The idea that certain games are just supposed to be free because they are a specific game genre. If they're riddled with microtransactions, of course, make the game free. But is it right to expect a game to be price free because you shoot at or play against other real-time players? Should a random multiplayer shooter always be free to play? Is that something that should always be expected of these games? No matter what you may think of a game genre, it still costs money to be made. There's still a group of people who worked on it. Should their work really be given away for free all the time? If things were different and these type of multiplayer games weren't always free to play, would they still have audiences that found their worth? What happens when that price boundary is pushed? From what I've seen, it can be disastrous. Concord is, or was, a 5v5 hero shooter. I remember watching its reveal, that almost 5-minute cinematic trailer, and feeling a little bit confused and a lot underwhelmed. This game was weird, with it having all the marketing and perks of a AAA title, but being a hero shooter. I didn't know what to expect. I just chopped it up that Concord would follow in the footsteps of all the games that came like it before and be free. It was not. Concord failed miserably. Honestly, the way in which it failed was really unprecedented. You could blame anything for this outcome. As someone who actually tried the open beta, yes, the gameplay was a bit generic. The characters were a mess. The game modes never really did anything special. Concord just checked the boxes for what a hero shooter should be in our current time. The only box it didn't check was the price. Concord was $40. No matter what you may think about the game, I really think this played a pivotal role in Concord's ultimate failure. There's no possible way for me to really know what other people's viewpoints are on prices. However, with Concord being a hero shooter, I can surmise that price is really what put the nail in the coffin. We do not like paying for multiplayer shooters that aren't Call of Duty. It's not in our DNA anymore. Gamers expect this type of thing to be free. Is that right? I don't know. When I go back and look at Concord, does this look like something that's worth money to me? It's a tough question in a post-Fortnite, Apex Legends, and Call of Duty Warzone world. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Heck, even Overwatch 2 is free. That's a hero shooter. Even if those games are free, is it right for me to say that Concord should have been free just because of its genre? Are all shooters meant to be free? Is that fair for me to say when real people worked on this product every day for, well, that can't be right. Does that say 8 years? Is it fair for me to say that when it's reported that they spent $400 million on its development? Maybe $40 was the right price. If it was, it wasn't the right price for us. It's an impossible question to answer in a world where we already expect certain games to be priced in certain ways. It makes me think about the way we expect any type of genre to be priced, like platformers. You don't need to look very far to find someone who looks at all platformers as mid-priced titles. The inherent gameplay style of platforming for some people is something that just can never be full price. Of course, I'm not telling you if that's right or wrong, I just find the way we all look at game prices differently fascinating. It makes me think about the way I personally look at games like Astrobot and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. These two titles are some of the most beautiful games I've ever played. I consider them to be some of my favorite games on the PS5, and they're both, of course, 3D platformers. Rift Apart felt like a showcase for the PlayStation with the way it constantly warped me throughout its beautiful worlds in seconds. The combat was as explosive as any Ratchet & Clank game with super interesting weapons and gadgets for me to use in a bunch of different ways. To this day, I still get back on the game just to play around with the gravity boots. And Astrobot blew my expectations way further than I was ready for. It might not have much of a story, but the quality of its platforming, the detail in its activities, and creativity in its level design was just on another level. The game truly reshaped my views on what platformers going forward are. It was just that good. These two platformers offer up a level of polish that I expect from any AAA game, which is why I'm not ashamed to say I paid full price for them. To myself, a game's genre doesn't get in the way with how I perceive its worth. From my viewpoint, it always depends on how much there is to do in a game rather than it solely being what you do in a game, when it comes to my expectation of price. This of course will always be different for everybody, as expectations will never be shared by all, which makes a lot of sense to me. If you're not that into platformers, why would you want to pay full price for them? For many people, they're seen as kid games, or a lot of people's problems with them is that their runtime is a bit too short to warrant full price. The latter reasoning is always going to be a tricky subject to gauge because I think this ideology is applicable to all game prices. Should we expect a game's length to coincide with a game's price? This of course is one of those questions I immediately jump at and say yes initially. A full price game cannot be considered a short game, but it's hard to justify this reasoning when I've already bought and played so many full price titles with such varying runtimes. I think about Final Fantasy Rebirth. This is a massive game with multiple fairly large open areas full of decent length side missions and a plethora of minigames. My first time playing Rebirth, I was truly blown back with how much stuff was really in the game. I remember cruising past 100 hours before ever even reaching credits and still having some remaining side missions to do. Rebirth is truly packed with content. I guess you could say it's the perfect game for the price. You even get 2 discs to have if you bought the hard copy. But it's not that simple. While I really enjoy Rebirth's content and length, it's still not a one-size-fits-all answer. If every game took 100 hours to complete just because I paid full price, I'd probably lose my mind. A game should still be able to be a smaller length and full price as long as the quality of the content is up to the price. That idea makes me think about Marvel's Spider-Man 2, another game I paid full price for but with a much smaller runtime. For better or worse, Spider-Man 2 cost me the same as Rebirth and it only took me about 15 hours to reach the credits. Now, is it bad that these two games cost me the same but I spent a much different amount of time with them both? Like anything else in this video, your mileage will vary. And to be clear, I do have more time in Spider-Man. Those 15 hours were just me focusing on the main mission progression with just a few side missions and free swinging tacked on. To this day, I still get back on Spider-Man 2 and swing around just with the sole purpose of being Spider-Man. That's just fun for me. I'm also a person that frequently replays their games, so value in a game's price no matter how long the game is something that pays itself off over time for me. If you aren't that type of player, then yes, full price for shorter games doesn't really make a lot of sense. In that case, you have every right to buy a game at full price and expect it should keep going past a certain length of time. We all want to stretch our dollars as far as possible. If a game ends too early, there'd definitely be disappointment. This is why game prices are so weird. There's so many different variables to look at before they're ever priced. Yet for the most part, I feel like there has been a good balance in what we've expected from game prices to how they are actually priced. In that way, video game prices aren't weird. We have crafted this unspoken rule on expectations. From game studio to player, everyone understands where we are currently. Games cost what they cost. Some should cost a little less based on what they are, and some should be free. We may argue a bit on exact numbers. Sometimes games are priced a little higher than what players expect, but that problem typically resolves itself through sales and discounts if needed. It's a give and take relationship, and while it may not be perfect, it's all under the fire that no matter what game prices end up being, we can assure ourselves and have accepted that there is a maximum. We know that there is a number that a game's price would never go over in our current generation, and it gives us a barrier of stability. No matter what game is revealed and shown off, we expect to be able to put a certain amount of money to the side in anticipation. Video games might be an expensive hobby, but there is a comfort in the expectation we have garnered for what they cost, and I think we've all learned to accept this. But then I sat back and thought, what about Nintendo games? When I first sat down to write this script, I had no idea we'd be here. I wholeheartedly believed this section would be about GTA 6, how the price of that game was going to change the way games are priced forever. I would have never guessed that out of all companies, Nintendo would have my full attention on price. In retrospect, the painting has been on the wall for some time now. The way Nintendo prices their games has always been the most interesting to me, and I've even started to respect their value in their own work. 8 years removed from the release of the Switch, and their games are still full price. Games like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe are all games that have been with the Switch since its first year and still have not seen anything more than a sale, maybe a couple of times a year. That sale is usually about 20 to 25% off, so nothing major. Heck, the Switch 1 itself hasn't even seen a permanent price reduction. Nintendo believes in their own worth, and judging from their console and video game sales, I can't sit here and say they weren't right. Nintendo knows we want this stuff. They are fully aware of what they hold. I can't get Mario anywhere else. I can't get Pokémon anywhere else. I wouldn't have discovered my newly found love for the Zelda series anywhere else. When you're the only option for consumers, you hold all of the chips. Nintendo can do whatever they want. The price of their games is merely whatever they want it to be, rather it makes sense or not, rather it seems fair or not. They exist in their own price universe, where remakes and ports all can be full price no matter what. This is why game prices are weird to me, because there's no correct price, and there never will be. There's no rules or rubric to how to price them. It's simply supply and demand. What games are worth so much to players that any price will sell? To Nintendo, that's any other games really. Nintendo has very firmly changed what games are worth over the span of a full generation. They have made it very clear that their games do not depreciate in value, no matter how long it's been, and we have fully accepted this. We all own a copy of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and if it wasn't bundled in with your Switch, you most likely paid top dollar for it. Full price is something you just have to get used to as a fan of Nintendo games, and it's a bit weird. Nintendo prices are so odd that I have to fully accept a world where God of War Ragnarok can go on a bigger sale than Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. That's not even a Nintendo game. I have to just accept that if it's from the Nintendo eShop, it might cost more. And so here we are, on the cusp of a new Nintendo generation. I can't really say what I expected price-wise. All I knew that expecting normalcy wasn't an option. Nintendo is in their own price world, their own Mario Kart world. $80 is the magic number. I can't seem to get away from that price when looking at gameplay. I don't really feel anything when I see that price. I'm not shocked or even angry. In a world where Mario Kart 8 Deluxe will probably continue to be $60 well past the release of the Switch 2, did you really expect anything different? People keep asking why Nintendo would price a game so high. I mean, have you seen the Mario Kart 8 sales? This is why. We've already shown them what Mario Kart is worth to us, and this is their response to that. I think it's pretty safe to say that Nintendo and many other companies have wanted to raise the price of games for some time now, and they have been waiting and testing the concept for a while. Remember when Tears of the Kingdom was $70 for no discernible reason? I thought we were witnessing the shift in price back then for Nintendo games. Didn't it seem odd that that one game cost more than everything else? I mean, yeah, Tears of the Kingdom was really good. It was bigger than Breath of the Wild with a lot of new features and expanded maps. It had a lot of stuff. It also reused a lot of assets and followed a pretty similar formula to Breath of the Wild. I'm not saying that as a dig to Tears, that game was peak. I'm just proving that Nintendo has already shown us that the price of their games can be whatever they want it to be, whenever. And from looking at the Tears of the Kingdom sales, it shows people will buy. If it's the right game, people will accept the price of entry. While that price may not work for everyone, I think this company believes it will eventually work for enough people. It's really hard for me to say that they shouldn't think like this because gamers have already proven time and time again to game studios, to publishers, to money-hungry CEOs, and probably even themselves that eventually, no matter what games do end up being priced at, with enough time and the right games, no matter the cost, gamers will accept them. Is any of this right? Truthfully, I can't answer. I've already admitted that video games are expensive, not just in price, but in existence. There is a lot of money spent to make video games. We somehow found ourselves in a generation where one game can cost hundreds of millions of dollars to be made. Just to get a single game to market, there's more money spent than I'll see in my lifetime. I may have a hard time understanding what that amounts to. And I even hate to admit it, but sometimes we get away with playing some pretty impressive games for not much money. I know the games we play have so much packed inside of them. So many hours of real people who worked extremely hard on crafting these beautiful worlds, constructing these interesting characters, and formulating addictive gameplay loops. There is so much content in what we play today. It can sometimes be so baffling. Is it fair for me to get upset when I don't have the full picture? As much as I play, talk, and think about video games, I have no idea how much goes into actually making them. I've never seen a room full of developers at work. I've never watched someone spend hours of their life pouring their absolute all into making the things I enjoy casually. I owe quite a bit to video games. I play them almost every day. I talk about them almost every day. I think about them constantly. No matter how lame it sounds, I probably wouldn't be the person I am right now without video games. How do you put a price on something like that? I can't tell you what a video game should cost. I don't have the keys to answer something as grand as that. All I can do as a consumer of video games is to enjoy them. Enjoy what I can. Buy what I can. Play games that are priced in a way that makes sense for me. That's all any of us can do. Video game prices are weird. They fluctuate constantly, they shift our expectations, and sometimes they make us feel like all we can do is accept that we may never know their true worth. I will not focus on worth anymore. It is too subjective of a concept, because what I've learned is the worth of any kind of game, any game you enjoy, any game that shapes you, teaches you, moves you in any meaningful ways, true worth is priceless.